I love movies. Gosh, I love movies.
We come to this place. Imagine.
I watch a lot of movies.
You did?
Yeah, I watch about a movie a day.
Welcome to Cinephomaniacs, a podcast by and for movie lovers. I'm Peyton.
And I'm Andrew. And in this episode, we're talking about Scary Movie.
But first, we're going to briefly discuss what else we've been looking forward to lately in a segment we call Added to Watch List.
One movie we already have our tickets for, even though it doesn't come out until July 17th, is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. We got tickets for the early Thursday screening at the M3gan Theater, which we're big fans of. And it's actually the first movie they're going to be showing on their new 70mm projector system. So we got tickets for that, and also because they were giving out free 70mm hats for The Odyssey.
Yes, they had branded hats for the first 100 people in line, and we showed up an hour early, and we're already about the 40th people, I think. So Orlando is clearly full of Odyssey heads because that thing was packed.
This is the first narrative feature to be shot entirely in IMAX. There have been other movies that were shot in IMAX before, but they were mostly documentaries, short films. Christopher Nolan has been a big proponent of large formats, specifically IMAX, going back to The Dark Knight, so it's pretty cool that it's come far enough that he can now use it in a narrative movie. We're seeing it in 70mm for our first time, which is about the highest quality we can see it in short of IMAX, but we may have to make a trip down to Fort Lauderdale to see it in the 70mm IMAX down there.
Yes, anything we're getting from Christopher Nolan is going to be epic, so I think that would be well worth the trip.
Are you excited for The Odyssey?
I'm so excited about my free hat.
And one that's coming out this weekend that we actually saw a couple months ago at the Florida Film Festival is Carolina, Caroline. This was the festival's opening night movie, and it was a real crowd pleaser. This is from Adam Rehmeyer, the director of Dinner in America and Snack Shack, which are two that really meant a lot to me.
And it stars Samara Weaving and Kyle Gallner, who have just off-the-charts chemistry in this. They are electric from opening to ending. It was insane. Give me 500 more movies with them. I could sing their praises for the rest of this podcast. I was so moved. They had me on the edge of my seat, crying, just everything you could possibly want to feel. I was obsessed with them in this.
Kyle Gallner has taken me to places I wouldn't go with a gun. He is so charismatic in every movie. Please, Hollywood, cast him in a million more movies. He has chemistry with anyone you pair him with, and he's really great here.
There's also one singular scene with Kyra Sedgwick where she comes in and just absolutely steals the show. It's a pretty mean-spirited part and kind of devastating scene that she just brings everything to. That was really a standout moment of the film for me, and I didn't know she was in it, so very exciting to see her. I grew up watching The Closer with my mom, so that was a really fun moment.
It's a romantic crime movie, sort of in the vein of Bonnie and Clyde. Kyle Gallner is a con man who takes Samara Weaving under his wing and drags her out of her small town, and they go on the road conning people, robbing banks, and it just kind of escalates from there. And I honestly didn't predict some of the places it ended up going, but I think it ends on just the perfect note for this movie. So I would highly recommend seeing this one while it's out in theaters. And the last one we're excited for is the new A24 movie directed by Olivia Wilde, The Invite. This stars Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. It's a remake of a Spanish film called The People Upstairs. And the logline for this one is, it follows a couple in a troubled marriage, Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde, who invite over their upstairs neighbors, an enigmatic couple who will either help save their marriage or destroy it. What do you think of this one?
This one looks really fun. Parts of the trailer almost give thriller, but a lot of it seems to be implying that Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton's characters are going to proposition Seth and Olivia, and maybe the awkwardness and hijinks that follow that. So I'm really excited about the core cast here. I'm big fans of all of the people listed and think they're all incredibly talented. I'm kind of wondering what the twist will be. I haven't seen The People Upstairs, and I'm sure there's going to be a bit more than what the trailer seems to be leading us towards. So yeah, I'm excited to have this one on our watch list. What about you?
I'm excited for it as well. It does seem to be implying that Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz are going to ask them to hook up with them, but I feel like it's not that. I feel like there's just something more there that we aren't getting yet. And I'm excited to see Olivia Wilde again as an actor and as a director. I think she did something really great with Booksmart. I think Don't Worry, Darling didn't really work, but it was definitely an interesting attempt, and I'm down to give her another shot.
She had a huge hit with me for Booksmart and a huge miss with me in Don't Worry, Darling. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this one falls. This next section is something we call Remove from Watchlist, where every week we whittle away at just a few of the movies Andrew wants to watch on Letterboxd. Andrew, what's your list at right now?
58,007.
Okay, so that's a pretty good drop from last time.
I'm trying.
And we've already touched on our favorite place, the Anzian Theater. So why don't you tell them what we saw there recently?
We recently saw All About Lily Shushu. This is a Japanese movie from 2001, and they were showing its 25th anniversary 4K restoration. My review of this one on Letterboxd was, I saw the CD player glow. This is a coming-of-age movie drama about young school children in Japan who find community online in forums of their favorite pop star called Lily Shushu. And it follows them over the years through some pretty traumatic incidents as they rely on their fandom of this pop star to get them through it. What did you think of this one?
I thought the aspect of these teens communicating through the online board for Lily Shushu was really interesting and very relatable, despite this being a 25th anniversary screening. I grew up having a One Direction fan account on Twitter and meeting some friends I still have now that way, so it was neat how that's kind of similar but different. And I did think it was interesting to watch two teen boys who are on very similar paths in a lot of ways, but choose two entirely different directions in terms of the bully versus the bullied, which comes together in a pretty tragic climax. It went on a bit long for me, but overall I was pretty enthralled for a good chunk of it.
I feel like this one came in at just the right moment where people were becoming more active online and the internet was becoming a place where people were really finding community. And even though this is 25 years old, like I alluded to in my joke review, these are still topics that are coming up in the media and in movies. I do agree it was a little long, and it follows a non-linear structure, which I actually didn't realize for a good chunk of the movie. I was like, wait, we're following this guy now? So I'd probably like to watch it again one more time, knowing which way it goes, but it was still very cool that they showed it, and I really enjoyed it as well. This is not one I would have gone out of my way to see if they weren't screening it on that day, so that's always one of the nice things about the Enzian.
Another one we caught at the Florida Film Festival that I got to check out again recently is Tuner. This technically released at the end of May, so we're a bit behind the times on this one. But this is another crime thriller that stars Leo Woodall, Dustin Hoffman, and Havana Rose Liu. And this is one I didn't really have any expectations going into it, but I was really charmed by.
Havana Rose Liu, who's quickly becoming one of the most mentioned people on this podcast.
As she should be.
This was maybe the busiest screening we attended at the Florida Film Festival. We showed up about 30 minutes early and we still barely found a seat. This is about a piano tuner who has a condition that makes him averse to loud noises, and he's recruited for his ear to become a safecracker. And from there it sort of becomes a tense crime thriller. I was really impressed by the sound design of this one. I feel like they probably created this thinking maybe they would release it later this year, have some Oscar chances. The director is Daniel Roher, who was a documentary filmmaker up to this point. He won an Oscar for Navalny a couple years ago. It came out in May, so they must have changed their minds on that, but I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised by this one. There were a few plot points I found a little convenient, maybe could have been fleshed out a little more, but overall I did have a good time with this one.
Yeah, and kind of like Carolina Caroline, Leo Woodall and Havana Rose Liu have really fun chemistry here. It's really fun to watch them together whenever they're on screen, and Dustin Hoffman is a delight here too.
Dustin Hoffman is great. I don't see him in a lot of things anymore. He's like 90 years old here, and it seems like they pretty much let him do whatever he wanted. All the interviews I've listened to seem to confirm that, which is kind of what he's wanted all this time.
So we recommend you all remove Tuner from your watch list as well.
Well, it's all right.
It's showtime, folks.
And now, for the reason you're all really here, let's talk Scary Movie.
This is the 6th movie in the Scary Movie franchise, even though they're just calling it Scary Movie. And the last one we got was in 2013. Did you see that one?
I did not.
I don't think anyone else did either. This one brings back the Wayans brothers, both starring and writing. It also has Anna Faris and Regina Hall, who starred in the first 4 movies. It's playing in the vein of the 2022 Scream movie, which was called Scream, and tried to bring the original cast back, sort of frame it as a legacy sequel, as they called it. And it's apparent they're doing something similar here, trying to bring back some of the nostalgic feelings people have about the scary movies they watched in the early 2000s. The first Scary Movie came out in 2000. It starred Marlon Wayans, Shawn Wayans, Anna Faris, and Regina Hall. Marlon Wayans and Shawn Wayans also wrote it, along with their brother Keenan Ivory Wayans, who directed. That movie was mostly a parody of Scream, with a little bit of Scream 2 and I Know What You Did Last Summer for good measure. And that movie was hugely successful. To this day, it grossed more than any Scream movie. And it was the highest grossing movie from a black director for the next 5 years. It was so successful that they released Scary Movie 2 just a year later. But after that, there were some contract disputes with the Wayans brothers. They felt like they had earned a bit higher compensation than the Weinsteins were willing to provide, so the franchise continued without them. They brought in David Zucker, the director of The Naked Gun, and he gave it a little bit more of a slapsticky, kind of broad spoof vibe. Scary Movie 3 and 4 had Anna Faris and Regina Hall returning, along with Charlie Sheen becoming the new leader of the franchise. And then Scary Movie 5 came out, which was just awful. There was a period of time where the parody movie was kind of a genre unto itself. We had movies like epic movie, date movie, superhero movie, pretty much declining in quality with each one, until finally Scary Movie 5 came and went. And it was just horrible. Pretty much killed the genre, killed the franchise. And now we're back 13 years later trying to revive it.
So like you said, this one follows Scream 5 pretty much beat for beat. Aside from our opening, which it pulls from Scream 6, and spoilers from here on out, here we get an actually really fun cameo from none other than Teyana Taylor. And this is, of course, coming off all of the buzz around her and One Battle After Another. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and that film was nominated for and took home a bunch of other Academy Awards. It was one of our favorites of last year, if not your favorite overall.
This follows the opening of Scream 6 closely, where Teyana Taylor is in a bar waiting on a Tinder date. In this version, the bartender is Carmen Electra, who played the Drew Barrymore parody role in the first Scary Movie, and they acknowledge it outright. Teyana Taylor says, "Hey, I'm just doing the opening of the movie cameo thing." Carmen Electra's like, "Oh, I've done that before."
Not great line delivery from Carmen Electra, in my opinion.
Teyana Taylor is lured out of the bar into an alley by her date over the phone, and he's telling her to come down the alley and meet him, and then similar to Scream 6, Ghostface pops out and comes at her with a knife.
Dissimilar to Scream 6, Teyana Taylor immediately calls in backup, and she is swarmed by a bunch of dudes who are ready to take on Ghostface. Ghostface does make an effort here, which actually led to one of the few laughs from Andrew and I throughout the movie, because Teyana Taylor is in a dress that is showcasing her amazing abs incredibly. And Andrew leaned over and was like, "Dude, her stomach." And then Ghostface goes to stab her in the stomach, and her abs completely stop the knife and crumple it up. So after Ghostface gets beaten down pretty bad, another kind of funny gag here is that his mask changes and is all black and blue now. He makes one last-ditch effort to get Tiana by making fun of her Oscar loss, which of course went to Amy Madigan for Weapons. But unlike Samara Weaving's unlucky Scream 6 character, she walks away unharmed here.
And she gets one last line before she goes, which is, "I won the Golden Globe though, bitch."
Yes, so our opening slash here that leads into the title card is her beating Ghostface once more with that Golden Globe.
From there, it cuts quickly to reveal that this was all a movie within a movie. This is the latest movie in the
horror movie franchise.
And we see that Tuesday Campbell is watching this movie. This is, of course, a play on Wednesday Addams, Jenna Ortega's character in the Netflix show. Jenna Ortega played this role in Scream that they're parodying. They take some self-deprecating shots here, saying, wow, is this really what's happened to the horror movie franchise? This sucks. She gets a call from Ghostface, similar to the opening of every Scream movie. Except in this version, she just immediately opens the door and kind of catches him off guard because he wasn't expecting her to actually do it. Ghostface stabs her and puts her in the hospital. And then we cut to a different character, Sarah Campbell, played by Olivia Rose Keegan, who's doing a really great impression of a young Anna Faris. She's playing Tuesday's estranged sister, Cindy Campbell's estranged daughter.
Yes, I do have to say, even when the jokes didn't hit, which was often, this actress was giving a killer performance. And when we meet her, she is dating our parody of Jack Quaid's character. I don't even remember his name, to be honest. And
I think it's Jack.
And they're working at a Final Destination themed theme park. And actually, this starts out kind of funny because, of course, one of the Final Destination movies actually opens with a theme park disaster being the premonition. So that's a great reference in and of itself. And just watching all of these theme park attractions literally go off the rails behind them while they're just having a conversation is kind of funny. However, as it goes on, it is pretty much just the same joke over and over. And then those that have seen Final Destination Bloodlines will recognize the joke that kind of closes out this theme park segment where a little boy runs out and says, "Oh wow, I'm so glad I made it, thanks to my lucky penny," and then is immediately squashed by something falling out of the sky, which is pretty much bar for bar how the joke happens in Final Destination Bloodlines. So they aren't even really doing anything original with this. They're just saying, hey, we know you all loved that when it happened in that movie. What if we do the exact same thing here and you'll love it again?
Yes, I think this is one of several times in the movie where the joke they're making about the movie is a joke the movie already made. They're not really adding any sort of commentary or fun spin on it. They're just doing it over again. Sarah gets a call saying that her sister Tuesday is in the hospital, and the stabbing is what brings her back to Woodsville, which I learned we didn't actually have the name of the town until this movie. And from there, similar to Scream, we return to the town and meet all the children of the protagonists of the original movie. In this version, the killers are going after the children and using it as a way to also get to the parents and kill them.
So like we said, Scream 5.
And I don't really feel like we need to go that much deeper into the plot from there. For one, there's not much of a plot. And for two, we've already seen it in Scream. So why don't we talk about what works in this movie?
One of the movies being parodied here is Sinners, and our reintroduction to Ray's character parodies Sammy going to his father's church service at the beginning of that film. Here we get an Andrew Caldwell parody, which I actually didn't know, I'm embarrassed to say, what the reference was until after watching this. But in retrospect, it actually did make the scene hilarious. So Ray enters the church and walks up to the front to make a confession. If you've seen the movies, you can probably guess what it's going to be, is that he is not gay anymore.
Yes, and the character of Ray, I believe, is called that because it was Gay Ray in the first movie. A character who is very obviously gay, but denies it at every opportunity. And some people clocked even from the trailer that with the costume he's wearing, this was going to be a parody of the "I'm not gay anymore" meme clip.
Tell him, I'm not gay no more. I am delivered.
I will say, to their credit, all of the parodies here are a really good visual recreation of the movies they're parodying. The costumes, the sets, there's a lot of production value to this, and they really don't skimp on that aspect.
I agree there, especially when it comes to the substance. That wasn't that funny, but it looked great.
Another joke where they really go all out is actually in their Get Out parody, where Shorty is sent to the sunken place, except in this version, he is just so high that he imagines himself being part of K-pop demon hunters.
Yeah, this scene was excellent. It's fully animated, and they do a parody of the song Golden here that also got out loud laughs from Andrew and I. They put their whole chest into this one. This part was fun.
This one really caught me off guard because I was not expecting this joke in this movie, but I definitely wasn't expecting them to go all in on animating the whole sequence, recreating the entire song. I don't know that any of the individual lyrics of the song are actually that funny. We see the lyrics on screen and there are a lot of words that are bleeped throughout. It's more funny just that they did it and that they spent so much time doing it that makes this joke work for me.
And of course, because it's based off of Golden, it is a catchy song, so.
That's true.
Another one that got a big laugh out of me is in probably the only instance of this actually happening. On Halloween, Brenda passes out some of Shorty's candy to neighborhood children, which, of course, because it's Shorty, this candy is actually drugs. So Brenda has accidentally laced a bunch of kids with both weed and shrooms, and what sends them Naruto running down the streets is, of course, when that high hits. This really is all of the weapons that we get, but I thought that was enough. This made me laugh.
And I kind of wish the joke ended there with them running around in the Naruto run, because I feel like that was enough of a joke. They let it run a little too long, and we hear what the kids are thinking, but there's not really anything funny there. It's kind of like, wow, I'm so high. One of the kids says 6'7".
Yeah, that killed it a bit, but initially it did make me laugh. And finally, towards the end, one that I would go as far as to say made me cackle is one of our characters asks, what would Scream be without Sidney Prescott? And I think it's Shorty, in just a completely deadpan voice, goes, that would be Scream 6. Justice for Melissa Barrera.
Justice for Melissa Barrera.
I honestly thought there was a good chance she would have a cameo in this, and now I know I set the bar far too high, but that would have raised it, honestly, several star points for me had they been smart enough to do that.
Yes, Melissa Barrera, who was infamously fired from the Scream franchise for taking a stance against the genocide in Gaza. For a while, it looked like there was a real possibility of her appearing in Scary Movie. She and Marlon Wayans followed each other. They liked some posts saying that she should be in it. And it seemed like she's expressed in interviews that she would have accepted if they offered it. Now Marlon Wayans is saying, man, I wish I knew that she wanted to be in it. Which, of course, he did know that. I mean, he followed her at the time. But I think more likely Paramount probably just didn't want any of that heat.
Probably so.
So what didn't work about this movie for us?
Pretty much everything else.
One of the things which I've already brought up is that a lot of the jokes aren't really even jokes. They're just recreating the same scene from the original movie.
Yes, they try to do a Terrifier parody, which if you listen to our Backrooms episode, you know I'm a big Terrifier girly. We get pretty much the same scene from Terrifier 3 of Art the Clown passing out deranged presents to kids, except honestly it's toned down more in this version than what it is in Terrifier 3, so it's barely even a parody in my eyes. In Terrifier 3, infamously, Art gives a bomb to one of the children, which does very quickly explode, killing pretty much all of them. In this version, the kids are getting severed limbs, and I guess they kind of push boundaries by having a little girl hold up testicles, which, haha, so funny. But all in all, it's just a tamer version of a scene that was done better in a movie that goes far more off the rails. So I was quite disappointed by that one.
Similar to the Final Destination Bloodlines reference, you're making a joke about the movie that the movie made. I did like one note here, which was just that instead of Macy's, the name of the store in this was Gacy's, a reference to John Wayne Gacy, which is just a little production design joke that I enjoyed.
They also parody the Michael trailer, of course, for the Michael Jackson biopic that is actually also in theaters now. And this is something that I had hope for. They included it in the trailer for this movie, and I thought it was possible that this could be quite funny, but it overstays its welcome in every way. It turns out to be a parody of Jermaine Jackson, so they don't really go there with any of the jokes because of the brother that they're parodying, and I'm really confused as to why this was even in here except to just show Kenan Thompson for a couple of minutes.
This is similar to something that the later Scary Movies did, where they weren't even parodying movies that had come out already. They were starting to parody contemporary movies where maybe they'd only been able to see the trailer when they made the movie. There's not really a lot of jokes here. The punchline is that it's Jermaine, not Michael, but they're not really touching any of the actual hot topics around Michael Jackson, which maybe says something about the way that the narrative has shifted around Michael Jackson. Because in the mid-2000s, it was a very common opinion that Michael had molested kids. And this franchise was kind of leading the charge on these creepy parody depictions of Michael Jackson. Now, fast forward 20 years, and they don't even want to touch it.
They don't want to touch anything here, which I think is good in a lot of ways, because if you go back and watch the originals, there are really demeaning jokes against pretty much every minority group, especially the LGBTQ community, and that is absolutely dialed back here, in part, I'm sure, to the tide shift that we've had in culture since the original movies were released. And I believe due to the fact that Marlon Wayans does have a trans son who, to give him credit, he is very openly supportive of. There is a trans character in this movie, and all of the jokes pretty much revolve around the fact that they're trans, at least the jokes in relation to this character. But they're not saying anything either way. They're certainly not transphobic jokes, but the jokes are kind of just that characters in this movie have they, them pronouns, and like, that's a thing, ha ha ha. And I just don't even really understand who the target audience for these jokes is, because they're definitely not going to go far enough for people that are more right-wing on stuff like that. But it's definitely not going to appeal to people actually of that community, and they're just not funny.
Yeah, they've been advertising this movie around, we're going to offend everyone, no one is safe from being made fun of in this, but none of their jokes are really biting. They're depicting a trans character, but they're too scared to really go after him in any kind of meaningful way, and so the joke just seems to be that, hey, he's trans, you know, use he, him pronouns to refer to him, not she, her. Isn't that so funny?
Before that character is killed, Ghostface even says, "You're about to identify as dead."
It's not even that it's a very mean-spirited joke. It's just not funny, and it's also pretty dated. I feel like this type of lowest common denominator joke around trans people has been made so much in comedy. It's just so played out. And it's not even that it's offensive. It's just, if you're gonna do it, have something new to say, and they don't.
They make the very strange choice to include a World Star reference.
Yes, that was one of the jokes in this movie that felt like maybe was in the script 10 years ago and just stayed in. I haven't heard anyone yell World Star in years. There's another sequence that seems to be trying to tap into the internet in a more contemporary way with an extended Kai Cenat cameo. I'll just concede that that is not for me. I'm not really someone who watches streamers. I don't know that much about Kai Cenat. Maybe someone enjoyed this joke.
But we were not one of those people.
I can safely say we were not the target audience for that scene.
Even though we touched on the Substance parody earlier and how good it looked, we actually came across a promotional poster for this movie of that scene, and it says on it, "You won't find any substance here." And those are pretty much my feelings about that sequence and joke. This is where we get a White Chicks reference. We actually get one of the Wayans brothers dressed up as their character from that movie, which of course is fun to see, but pretty much the only advantage there is the nostalgia factor. It's not very funny. It's not clear that anyone in the writer's room actually watched The Substance or understands what it does, I think, based on this. Or that's probably too harsh, but it just wasn't funny. I don't really get how it fit into the narrative, which, of course, You actually coined this phrase for me. These movies are on Family Guy logic, so not that it needs to fit in the narrative perfectly or have real rhyme or reason, but this really just didn't land for me, and I was a big fan of the substance.
Yeah, an example of that from the first movie was they're discussing the time they killed a guy the last summer. Then it cuts to a flashback where we get like a 10-minute parody of the scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's some examples of that here where there are brief asides that show a parody of a specific movie that isn't super relevant to the plot. It's just tangentially related, or it's a flashback. The substance is one of those moments. There's another with Longlegs, and I'd be hard-pressed to tell you what the lead-in to it even was. But we get a parody of the scene of Nicolas Cage waiting on the side of the road in Longlegs, except it's Chris Elliott's butler character from Scary Movie 2, doing a pretty convincing parody of Longlegs. And he's got his atrophied hand from Scary Movie 2 and all.
It seems clear that the reason this was included was because Chris Elliott just has the perfect features to do a wonderful Longlegs parody. We also very briefly get Damian Wayans, so I'm sure that played a part in its inclusion as well. And yeah, this was funny just because Chris Elliott is doing such a perfect Longlegs, but I don't think it really added anything. It certainly didn't get any actual laughs out of me.
We know from the trailer that there were a few more scenes parodying Longlegs with Chris Elliott and Damon Wayans Jr. So seemingly this plotline was cut down to just this one scene. Obviously they weren't going to cut out a member of the Wayans family completely or their friend Chris Elliott, but just the fact that that sequence was cut out makes me wonder how bad it was, because there are a lot of things that they left in here.
So since this movie has just copy-pasted the Scream 5 plot, a running gag throughout is how obvious it is that the Jack Quaid parody character is the killer. So of course in our finale we get that character and the Mikey Madison character stand-ins kind of battling it out with this movie's core four.
Yes, and those actors are Cameron Scott Roberts and Ruby Snober, who are doing a commendable imitation of Jack Quaid and Mikey Madison, really swinging for the fences. This is another example where the joke the movie is making is adding nothing to the joke that they originally made, because they just had the same killers as before, and it was the boyfriend who was very obviously the killer the entire time. We get an extended action scene where Anna Faris is dressed like John Wick and she's killing a increasing army of dozens of ghost faces in the John Wick style. This sequence isn't really funny, but it's kind of impressive that they went all in on that. She has a little joke about, I would say I'm dressed like ballerina, but no one saw that movie. The one twist this does have is that there are more killers than just the Jack Quaid and Mikey Madison characters. And those killers are Marlon Wayans and Shawn Wayans' characters, as well as Anthony Anderson and Shaquille O'Neal. And this scene is kind of blurring the lines between the characters they played in this movie or the previous movies and the actual actors. They're very liberally breaking the fourth wall here and just talking about how they were cut out of the franchise once and they're not going to let it happen again just for the sake of bringing in a new cast.
Once we've reached this point, all of the younger characters that are left are tied up in the living room of this house, which is a pretty good recreation of the Scream 5 set. Having learned more about the history of how the Weinsteins pushed the Wayans out of this franchise after the first two films, I will say in hindsight, this does work a bit better for me. And actually, even watching the movie, I found it to be kind of funny. But essentially, our original cast of characters decides that they're going to burn this house down and kill all of the kids, even their own kids, because they are not going to get pushed out of this franchise. It belongs to them.
Yeah, it's a scene that doesn't really make any sense within the internal logic of the movie. It only makes sense with the fourth wall aspect. Even Anna Faris' character is like, wait, did we just kill our kids? And so the movie ends with the original four characters kind of walking away from the burning house, sort of announcing that, hey, we're back, the franchise is back, and we're still leading it. Which would be promising if this movie didn't suck.
Yeah, I am happy that they were able to take the reins again and make the movie they wanted to make. That being said, I don't think the final product was that good.
And then we get this quick mid-credits scene, which is a parody of Nosferatu called Brosferatu. And I think the only joke here is that Count Orlok is black, which isn't really a joke.
It's a whole trailer pretty much just to get to the punchline Brosferatu, which unfortunately is just not that funny.
Doesn't really even make sense. So unfortunately, I would not recommend this one. I was pretty excited when they announced that it was going to come back, especially when I thought Melissa Barrera might appear in it. But the final product just isn't very funny. They don't really have much new to add to the conversation around these movies. And I really wouldn't recommend anyone go out of their way to see this in theaters. Maybe in a few months when it's online and you're under the influence of something or you're hanging out with your friends, this might be a little funnier. I don't think you need to see this one in theaters.
I would agree. I think we laughed out loud a total of 3 times. One thing I do like about this movie, and I think the scary movies in general, is it's always fun to see Ghostface. We actually didn't see Scream 7 in theaters because of the whole Melissa Barrera situation, or see it at all, because of everything that went down. So it was nice to see Ghostface on the big screen. Even though this is a parody movie, there are times when he really is menacing, and I love that. But overall, I would have to agree. Only laughing 3 times is pretty pitiful for a parody comedy movie. And yeah, a lot of the jokes just felt like things that were already said and for the most part done better in the original films. A lot of this just doesn't work and seems to be thrown in there just for the sake of referencing something. So if you're a fan of this franchise, there might be enough for you here, but overall, I don't think this is really bringing much to the table.
And that'll do it for this episode. Make sure you follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Cinephomaniacs.
Did you listen to this and think, man, they mentioned a lot of movies. I wish I knew what all movies they mentioned. Well, on Letterboxd, we've made a list for you. So make sure you go there, look at some of our lists, follow us on Instagram to see some fun memes and behind-the-scenes photos of us.
Make sure to check out Andrew's Substack, Andrew Likes Movies, to hear his thoughts on this and so much more. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to talk movies with us. This has been Cinephomaniacs. We can't wait to see you next time.
Did you nut? Usually you nut.